control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Friday edition. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm glad to be here amongst you and to have you here amongst me. Hope you've had a great week. Welcome to your weekend. You've earned it. Relax, kick back, and I just want you to know I'm really honored that you're choosing to spend part of that right here on TFR with all of us and on YouTube or wherever you're finding the shows you're listening to tonight, including the Paranormal Portal. Special thanks to the Freaky Friday. That was great. Love listening to you guys. I'm sitting there in the chat room going, oh yeah, and what about this? And what about this? I'm jumping into the conversation, but you know, sometimes it's hard not to be a part of it. But they're great guys, and it's a real honor to follow them. So thank you guys, and it was a great show. And welcome everybody that is here in the TFR audience right now is TFR Wookie, Paradoxical Anomaly, Psycho Dave 321, Joe Joseph is still showing up there, but I think he had to run. Enlightened Dawn is there. Dawn's to you too. Free Julian Assange, Donkey Hottie, and Excited Earthling. Great to see you guys. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. Really appreciate it. There is so much beyond the five senses. You're right, Free Julian Assange. And I agree with that as well. I agree with your name as well. But I hope you guys are doing great and hope you'll stick around. Love having you guys here. But moving over to the YouTube chat, I'm not sure. YouTube usually fills up a little slower. And we do 7 shows a week. And it's pretty consistently so. But so far, who's in YouTube is Bigfoot in Germany, Bigfoot Odyssey. How you doing, Carrie? Good to see you. Diane Swiger is in there. Deb Varner's in here. Isaac Ariola's in here. Josh Jacobs, Lisa Heilman, Minnie Musings, and Renee Cruz. And I'm sure the YouTube gave me a partial list. I see Cha-Cha's already in there. Bigfoot in Germany is in there. I Am Pam is in there as well. So, yeah, it's always the partial lists that I get from the YouTube participants roster. But I keep checking. If you missed you, just give me a shout out. Isaac, good to see you. Great to see everybody. So this is our Friday edition. I'm just thrilled to be here. Beth Fierce just came in. Good to see you. And we have what I hope will be an epic journey for you guys tonight. Again, I got an email, and I want to start the show with that because first and foremost, when I first started doing the portal, I mean, I really in my mind had it being kind of like Sasquatch Chronicles, where people would call in or write in, and I would just have these shows full of people's experiences. And I have received a bunch. I'm not complaining at all. Please don't take me wrong, but it's just my favorite part of the shows, and it's the reason that I love Sasquatch Chronicles and so many other shows, the confessionals as well. I love Duke's show where he talks to people about their research and what they're doing in the field. Bigfoot Odyssey, where they go out on location and check out these shows. So it has everything to do with people are experiencing, and that's what I love so much about those shows. And it's just really cool to see these phenomena through the eyes of the people experiencing it. So it's always been a real sweet spot for me in terms of the Paranormal Portal. And one of the things that really excites me the most is when I receive emails from people that are experiencing stuff out there. And so without further ado, I'm going to get to that. I got to blow this up, though. There it is. Wait, here it is. And this is actually from Beth, one of our listeners. And it says, she wrote a story for you when you need something short to end the show. Well, is it okay if I start the show with it? So it says, a million years ago, when I was 17, 5 of my friends and I decided to drive out to the Pitcairn property on Montgomery County, just outside of Philadelphia, looking for what they called the Bubbleheads. To this day, I don't know why they called them the Bubbleheads, but it had something to do with the Pitcairns being known for interbreeding to keep their money in the family. Well, we just wanted to see one of them. Well, they did. I just went along for the ride. The moon was out and lit up the dirt road ahead, and that eventually led to the main house. And there were thick woods along the left side of the road, and open field with a few trees was to our right. And as we very slowly drove closer and closer towards the house, Bill saw a man in his rearview mirror and told us, so naturally we all turned and looked to see this skinny guy with wild curly hair sticking up all over his head. He was riding a girl's bike and pedaled like he had all the time in the world. He looked a lot like my 7th grade English teacher, and that's why I can still see him clearly in my mind. It was close to midnight. My curfew was 2 a.m., so I was well aware of the time. And pretty soon the bike guy passed our car. He looked right at us, and it was as if he was floating past the car window in slow motion. It was really a little unsettling. We assumed this was one of the bubbleheads, and we girls got all freaked out, as girls sometimes do, and the guys told us to calm down and be quiet. Very supportive, weren't they? Not really, no. I wanted to go home, and Bill continued driving, and as we got to a place along the road just before the house, we could see a light on up in the window, so Bill stopped the car long enough for us to watch, just in case anyone should walk past a window, or maybe even step outside to ask us if we were lost. We really wanted to see the bubbleheads, and Debbie hadn't had enough and told them to turn around and go home. And Bill started to drive, and that man on the bike appeared out of nowhere, crossing the road from behind the house to the right of us into the woods to the left of our car. There was no way he could have made it from the beginning of the dirt road where we first saw him to behind the house without us seeing him. Plus, there wasn't enough time for him to have done this. It's hard to explain this to you time-wise, but it just wasn't possible. David kept saying, "How'd he do that? Was he a real person? A ghost?" Whatever he was, all 6 of us saw him. Bill drove home so fast that it was obvious from the silence of the guys that they were kind of creeped out as well. I never knew why, but they never spoke of that night again. No one brought it up for discussion, and the guys normally like to brag about what they did, but something about the man on the bike and being on the Pitcairn property disturbed them so much that they had remained silent about the entire night. Bill passed away about 30 years ago, and I never got to see him as an adult, and David lives on his own, in his own little world somewhere out west, and I've spoken to both Sharon and Debbie in the past couple of years, and neither remembers much about that night. Buddy, the only other guy in the car, lives in New Jersey, and I've seen him many times over the years, but whenever I bring up that night, just to reminisce, he says he remembers and then changes the subject. I must have missed something that night. It almost feels like the bubbleheads cast a spell over us, but I don't believe in that kind of stuff, or do I? Now, that is really wild, and I wonder if it was just meant to be a thrill ride, and then when it became real for those guys, it wasn't just a legend anymore. It was a real experience and something that defied imagination. So sometimes when people experience the paranormal for the first time, it really, really rattles their cages. And some people just desperately cling on to their paradigm. They just don't want that shifted. They don't want to lose their 3 dimensions and manicured lawns and the world the way they knew it. Because once you acknowledge that something paranormal is going on, you have to open up your mind to pretty much everything. I mean, it's all on the table at that point. So I would bet that this probably had a lot to do with they really didn't expect it to be real. But when something real happened, whether it was the bubbleheads or not, or, whatever the story is, something very real happened that probably rattled those guys so much. And this is just me speculating. Of course, I don't know them and have no idea who any of them are really, but that would be my guess. I'm only speculating though. But thank you so much for sending in that story. I think those stories are great. It's kind of wild. Those teenage adventures are pretty crazy sometimes. Most often they turn out to be a lot of nothing, but every once in a while you hear of one like this one that really turned into something spectacularly bizarre. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Beth. That's awesome. I really appreciate and am honored to have read it on the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, if any of you out there listening have a story of your very own that you'd love to share, I'd love to hear about it as well. You can always call into the Paranormal Portal. The portal number is always ready to go as long as we don't have a guest. And the phone number, of course, is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. And I'd love to hear from you. If you've got a story of your own, and it doesn't have to be about any one topic, whatever you feel like you want to share, I love to hear. So otherwise, you can definitely email if you're not into calling in and being on shows. That kind of freaks you out. Then just email paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Once again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So there's plenty of options to stay in touch. But again, thank you, Beth. I appreciate that. That was awesome. And any more that you have, please feel free to send them in. I love it. Let me get my screens sorted out here. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So I do have some things I want to go over with you guys tonight. I do want to touch on this one. There's a website that I found lately, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't get paid anything by this site. I'm not getting any kind of promotional anything from them, but I just really like their site. I think they do a great job, and the site is called singularfortean.com. And it's just a really neat website that has all these really, really well done reports about basically current events going on in the Fortean topics. And on Wednesday's show, we shared a few of them, some really great stories and stuff, including Richard Branson's dismissal of the idea of flying saucers and stuff, which, I guess he's entitled to that, but I think he's, I'm not really impressed with the guy. But anyway, there's one here that I wanted to read, and it has to do with something called metamaterials, and I'm going to read it with you. I haven't pre-read this at all, but just the topic metamaterials really intrigued me, so I wanted to read this with you guys and see what it's all about. So it says, metamaterials acquired by TTSA reportedly come from an advanced aerospace vehicle of unknown origin. So I assume metamaterial must be some kind of super advanced building material. It's like, yeah, no kidding. Derp. But, sometimes I just say things and I don't really realize how stupid they sound until they're already out of my mouth. But there you have it. It happens all the time. All right. So it says in recent press release from Public Benefit Corporation to the Stars Academy of the Arts and Science, which is TTSA. Okay, now we know the acronym. The company claimed to have acquired multiple pieces of metamaterials and an archive of initial analysis and research for their controversial ATOM research project. ATOM, an acronym for Acquisition and Data Analysis of Materials, is an academic research program focused on the exploitation of exotic materials for technological innovation. Wow, that's a lot of syllables, ladies and gentlemen, and I just did it. Kind of proud of myself. The materials were reportedly owned and studied by investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe prior to being transferred to TTSA and come from an advanced aerospace vehicle of unknown origin. TTSA plans to conduct rigorous scientific evaluations to determine its function and possible applications. According to Steve Justice, current COO of TTSA, the former head of advanced systems at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, he says, the structure and composition of these materials are not from any known existing military or commercial application. They've been collected from sources with varying levels of chain of custody documentation, so we are focused on very verifiable facts and working to develop independent scientific proof of the material's properties and attributes. In some cases, the manufacturing technology required to fabricate the material is only now becoming available, but the material has been in documented possession since the mid-1990s, and we currently have multiple material samples being analyzed by contracted laboratories and have plans to extend the scope of this study. Now, any of you that are interested in the UFO secret space program, deep underground military bases and stuff, will probably be familiar with a gentleman by the name of Phil Schneider. And if you're not familiar with it, he's the one that basically brought the whole Dulce base conflict to light, and that's where he apparently had some fingers burned off and a damage to his chest from being allegedly hit by an alien weapon. But he had an incredible array of different materials and stuff just like this. So, and many of the materials were allegedly not able to be fabricated on the surface of the Earth. In many of the cases, they would have had to have been fabricated, according to Phil. Now, I'm only telling you what Phil reported in one of his videos, but according to him, would have had to have been manufactured in some cases in zero gravity and other really specific scientific circumstances to make the materials that he had on hand. Now, I don't know of any independent studies that were done on these materials, so I can't quantify that validity for you guys, but I just find it very interesting, and perhaps Linda Moulton Howe became into possession of these things, perhaps from Phil Schneider's estate. He apparently, he died, is all I can say, but there's a lot of question around how that happened and whether or not it was by his own hand or whether he was helped. But it's, and I'm not laughing because of that. I was just thinking of a Clinton joke, but I don't know. But these exotic materials are pretty amazing. Now, I did watch a program years ago, and it had Mike Barra on it. He's a pretty well-known MUFON investigator and such, and he was one of the lead investigators on it. And they had actually gone to a location of this family, to their house, because this family was having all kinds of issues with these extraterrestrial vehicles, they said. And at one point, one of them came down in the driveway and was just sitting there spinning, and it was probably much too small to have housed a person in it, but it would look like, as I recall from their explanation, kind of like a spinning top. But he was sitting there out in the driveway, levitating off the ground, spinning around, and the son, who was an adult, the adult son, got fed up and went in and grabbed a shotgun and just unloaded on this thing. And then it took off and left. Now, what they did find was a piece of metal in the driveway that appears to have come from this craft. And throughout the course of this program, they did test it, and apparently from an independent laboratory testing this, it did seem to come from somewhere else, and it was a machine part. It wasn't just a fragment like it would have come from a meteor. It was a machine part. So Very interesting. So that this stuff is apparently out there, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from back, I suppose even predating Roswell, but that would be a pretty current example of where some of these materials may have come from. But I don't know the origin of Linda Moulton's Howe's pieces of equipment or of material that she had loaned to this program or given to this program to study. But very exciting stuff. I think that, reverse engineering of this technology is nothing new. I think it's been going on for a long time, and I think that, perhaps several pieces of day-to-day life and convenience could very well have been gleaned from some of those old reverse engineering projects. Who knows? It's possible. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to say it's for sure, but I think it is possible. So that was one of them that I wanted to read. The other one is, and I'm not going to read this one because I'm not really sure of the person that they're talking about. So I'll skip the rest of it until tomorrow when Don comes in, and we'll get into that some more. Now, another thing that I had pulled up, and this is a bunch of encounters, and most of them are really short. Let me look at the time first to see how we're doing. Yeah, I got 6 minutes. I can get into a couple of these, but these are people that experienced something that really made them look at the world differently. Perhaps like life was like the X-Files kind of thing. So let's get into these. I read part of this the other night, and there's still a lot more to go, and I thought these were really cool. Some of them are really, really short and don't really describe too much, but I think you get the idea that people are seeing things out there that are causing them to believe. All right, so this one says, when I was a little kid, I could see into the hallway that connected my room to the house. It was a short hallway, maybe 8 feet long, and I just happened to wake up for whatever reason, and an orb of light shot down the hallway, literally in a flash. It was so fast, all I could tell was that it was an orb of light. At first, I thought it was a reflected car headlight or something, but we live way out in the country, and there are no other cars in the driveway. It says where, but I think they meant way. Plus, there was no way light could reflect back into that hallway. 3 walls of the house are embedded in the hill. So, yeah, that's hard to see it, and very energy efficiently. So, an orb of light. Orbs, I think, are really interesting. And oftentimes they're indicative, in situations like this, I would say they would be indicative of probably some kind of spiritual energy. But I think that the term orbs it encompasses many different fields. I think there are UFO orbs. I think there are, small drone-like craft that are flown around. And our friend Jim Mount has talked about those at length in his visits with us here on the portal. But they are apparently piloted by a very small people as well that are like, 2 or 3 feet tall, called the Ephim Spinasti. But there are also other orbs that seem to appear in wild places. And I don't think these are just the UFO orbs, but I think they're a little different from the normal spirit orbs. And I think maybe these woodland ones are maybe somehow tied with the whole nature spirit thing or the Devic kingdom somehow, and it can seem like a real stretch. And I understand that. Just in saying that, there might be people going, okay, well, all right. But there are legends going back to the dawn of our intelligence, of being surrounded by beings that seem to be magical or possess these otherworldly powers and abilities. And many religions were built on these encounters with these beings. Now, some of them may be just flights of fancy, or perhaps they were chewing on some psychedelics or something back in the old days. But some of them seem to perhaps have basis in reality, because we continue to see similar phenomena happen even to this day. So, could it be? I don't know. Just food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. Let me check the time once more here. All right, we're down to 3 minutes. I can get another one in, I think. All right. Says, I had a job as a security guard in a 100-plus-year-old building. A cop that had been shot to death on the stairs 60 years ago and the stairs are about 6 feet from my watch desk in the center of the middle floor of this building. We were open until midnight each night, and usually no one came in, but the staff sometimes worked late. So when I heard someone walking down the stairs, huge wooden stairs, a stairwell that terraces and splits to go up to another level, I really didn't think anything of it. The footsteps stop at my desk, so I close my shift report and look up, but nobody's there. Nothing. No one. Nothing. Nada. I thought I was hallucinating due to the lack of sleep, so I played along with my delirium. I went back to filling out my report, and on a lark I said, I have no idea what you're looking to do, but we're both stuck here, and if you don't mind, I have a report to fill out, so please excuse me. About 10 seconds later, the steps started away from me going to the back up the stairs. I was terrified, way too scared to actually look up. But after that, I never had another issue in the building. Weird. Was I freaking out, or did I crack up? Did I crack up a 60-year-old dead cop ghost? Who knows? Really. That's terrible. This one's really short. It's one sentence. In high school, my pal bounced a bouncy ball in his room so hard we never saw it again. We tore up the room and never found it. I don't know if that's really paranormal or not, ladies and gentlemen, but I feel that. I've had those experiences, and having a little one, I swear to God, he makes things disappear all the time. But that's the joy of parenthood. Additionally, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to just take a moment and ask, if you haven't already, please check out our podcast. It is released 3 times a week, and it's available wherever podcasts are available. So you can check it out on iHeart, iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get podcasts, and look for the Paranormal Portal. We do 3 releases a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we've had a really tremendous response to that. It's been really fun and exciting to see people taking an interest in those. And in fact, I think we've met a lot of those people, or several of those people have come over to check out our YouTube and TFR show as well. So it's a real honor. But if you want to catch more of the portal, then check out the podcast and definitely subscribe. And that way you can download it. You can take it with you, listen whenever you have time. It's real convenient for those people on the move. So, all right, everybody, we'll be right back. The first break is upon us, so don't go away for more of the Paranormal Portal.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everybody, to half hour number 2 of 4. We already got one out of the way, and the time is flying as usual. But the phone lines are open tonight. If you want to call in and be a part of the show, by all means, call in and tell me something scary that happened to you. I'd love to hear about it, as long as it's paranormal. I mean, I'd be fine hearing about it either way, I guess. But in keeping with the theme of the show, it sure helps if it remains paranormal. But the call-in number is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. So call in and talk to me. But I'm going through a list now of a bunch of weird things that have happened to people that kind of made them question their reality, and understandably so. As we mentioned just in the at the tail end of the listener story that we read earlier, I think that people really take comfort in their paradigm. They really do. Like, we generally don't change very willingly. People just don't seem to change very willingly. They seem very stuck in their ways, very, very into their groove and into their rituals, and that's a lot of comfort for a lot of people. And so, when these things happen, it seems to require quite a shift in so much. It's not just a matter of going, wow, there's ghosts, go figure. But it's a matter of, wow, there's ghosts. What the hell else is there? Everything becomes possible. And at the point when somebody experiences something so profoundly jarring to their belief system. And I think, honestly, I really sometimes think that maybe perhaps these things happen to people because people need to be jarred into motion. I think we just get too stuck in our systems and in our practices that we forget, to maybe continue to expand and grow and explore, and maybe, just maybe, that there's a lot of goodness in these things in causing people to not be so comfortable, to not be so stuck in their ways, and maybe it jars them into motion again. I don't know. It just has occurred to me because a lot of times hauntings and esoteric stuff and spiritual awakenings oftentimes are really just one-offs. They don't seem to always take a pattern or continue to happen. They just happen. And it makes me wonder, well, why was that necessary? And that's the one thing that I've come to so far, and just thinking about, is that maybe because it needed to happen, maybe because that person or those people really needed to continue their life and not stop living. We just get so programmed into our 9 to 5s, Monday through Fridays and weekends, and that we quit expanding what we are. And I think that, in a nutshell, I think that that's a big part of why we're here, is that we're supposed to grow. We're supposed to learn. We're supposed to figure things out and become better. So just my 2 cents. It has really no bearing on anything other than I like to just think out loud sometimes on the show. If you're new to the show, that's something you can expect to happen quite often. And I don't claim to have the answers. I really don't. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I'm just an enthusiast. But I think that, I think that when the paranormal happens, it's not where things went wrong. It's where things demonstrated a reality that's much more fluid and dynamic. And I've repeated that so many times for the last year. And I don't want to be redundant, but at the same time, I think we all need reminders. So the next one that I'm going to read you tonight is I worked the overnight shift in an AM radio station back in the 90s. Saw a car come down the driveway to the parking lot. Went out to see who it was, but the car was just gone. I would have seen it if it had turned around or backed out. Thought I was going nuts until the announcer strolled out of the studio and said, "What happened to that car?" And that's the end of the story. But yeah, I guess that's a good thing is, if it just happens to you, then you really do have to question your sanity. But when somebody else experiences the same thing, that can be a saving grace and I guess make it a very real phenomena. Next one, I had a moment like that as well. It's as well, like, I don't know where they're playing that off of, where I heard a voice in my mind, but I thought it was with my ears. My dad and I had communicated with each other telepathically twice in the span of 30 minutes when we were on a road trip, completely zoned out. No music in the car, complete silence. He had asked himself a question in his head, and I answered him. He was so freaked out that I heard him. And then shortly after, I started thinking of a random TV show completely unrelated to our brief conversation prior. And then right on cue, he started whistling the theme song. Ooh, telepathy. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Is there telepathy? Telepathy? I think there is. I think there is telepathy. I think it happens all the time. And I think that mostly it probably happens on a level of consciousness that we don't tune into quite as often, like our normal waking conscious. But I think that we do communicate telepathically. I think that we are communicating probably with a lot more than just the other people around us. We're probably getting telepathic cues from our environment, so to speak. You ever walk into a room and just feel like something's wrong, something's off? And I think that that's a telepathic kind of communication. It's just, and I don't think that telepathic is much different than any other sixth sense. Whether it's clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairescience, telepathy would just be a manifestation for that energy, and it can sometimes come in the form of words and thoughts and ideas. So it's just a way of picking up things from elsewhere. I don't think that it's that uncommon. I just think it's not real common in our Western sensibilities and in our modern age. So just a thought. So let's see, there was another one. I was 6 and my brother was 10, and we had a 21-year-old foster brother who lived with us off and on. And one night I woke up to see him standing in the doorway of my room, checking on me. I said his name in a questioning voice, and he said, "It's okay, go back to sleep." Around the same time, my brother woke up in tears, and he said that he'd had a dream about a knight standing on a hill, and it made him very sad. Turns out that our brother died in a car crash that evening. Aw, that's a heartbreaker. But it is, again, it's cool in a very big sense that he was able to come and reassure his family. All right, the next one. This one scared me for a couple of months. When I was in high school, a guy and I got into an argument. Sorry, I'm reading it terribly. He socked me in the jaw and started to fall to the floor. When I hit the floor, I instantly transported to a dinner table at which I was an adult and there was a woman sitting across from me with a toddler boy and a preteen girl. I got a good look at my surroundings, a relatively modern house with what looked like 2 floors. I felt like I belonged here, like I had some sort of emotional connection with all the people in the room, especially the kids. And then the woman, my wife, asked me a question, and when I opened my mouth, I threw up all over the table and woke up in a stretcher in an ambulance. Hours later, I found out I just had a minor concussion. For a while, I felt like I left part of my life behind, even if it was only for a bleak moment in that world. To this day, I can still clearly remember all their faces and what the house looked like. Wow, that's very powerful. Next one. 6 years ago, I was hanging out with my siblings in our yard during a clear summer day around high noon, and I suddenly caught something moving in the sky out of the corner of my eye. When I turned to get a better look, I couldn't reconcile what I was seeing. It was a metal cube just gliding through the air pretty high up. I proceeded to absolutely lose my mind, and my sibs, I imagine siblings, saw it as well before it disappeared behind some trees. We ran to the other side of the trees, but it was already gone. Still really creeps me out to think about. We did live right next to a military base, so make of that what you will, but the thing had all the aerodynamics of a literal brick, though. Yeah, blocks don't normally fly real well. But if it was indeed an advanced craft, we've talked about this a little bit lately, is that, I don't think they need the aerodynamics because it seems as though a lot of these crafts separate themselves from the environment that they're in, like whether they just go a little bit out of phase or what, I don't know. And whether that's accomplished through electromagnetic fields or what, but there's reports of people that say they're observing these craft do things that a person couldn't do. Like our bodies would literally explode from that kind of, energy shifts, like 90-degree turns at, thousands of miles an hour and stuff like that. Our bodies just couldn't sustain that kind of momentum and shift. So we would literally shatter. But if these things are indeed piloted by organic beings, then they must be somehow removed from the normal physics, and perhaps that's by virtue of being in their own quote-unquote subspace field or whatever. Maybe it's an electromagnetic field that cancels out the normal physics that would apply, but they don't seem to need aerodynamics because they're not using, lift and drag and, all of the normal aerodynamics that we require in our aircraft. So I think they must surround the ship in a different, and perhaps that's why they're all quiet. Maybe these things really aren't silent, but if they are separating themselves by a field, then even the sound waves wouldn't be able to register to the air molecules outside of the ship. Perhaps that's why they're dead quiet, is that maybe they're noisy as hell, but if they can surround themselves with some kind of energetic field that cancels them from the normal physics, then it would seem it would also cancel the sound waves from being able to leave, and maybe that's why they can just go overhead absolutely silent and not alert anybody just by sound alone. So, just what I'm thinking. You guys will have to let me know if you're thinking the same. All right. The next one. I was driving down the highway at about 3 a.m. when a semi-truck pulled alongside of me, and then it swerved into my lane, running me off the road and down a very steep incline. I remember going over and I gunned the engine. Why, I don't know, but as I was going downhill, I kept telling myself to step on the brake. I couldn't move. It was like someone was holding my foot down. And then I heard this voice tell me, okay, now you can step on the brake. Neither my infant daughter nor myself were injured, and the only damage to the car was a hole in the oil pan. Both the tow truck and the highway patrol officer were incredulous that I didn't roll the car, and they told me if I had tried to stop any sooner than I did, it would have probably killed us both. Huh. So that there is divine intervention, I'd say. That really does seem like it. Like somebody stepped in and said, nope, you don't want to hit those brakes yet. We'll take care of it for you. I think those are really, really profound. Those are really cool instances. Now, what I don't understand about those kind of instances, and they do happen. I mean, I've read hundreds and hundreds of stories just like that, and heard encounters just like that through the years. of something, some being, some force, some presence, kind of the Jesus take the wheel thing. Like, well, I can't do this. Jesus, take over, will you? I'd love to hear about it. Weird Desk, if you want to call in, please do. But something takes over and takes control. Now, the part that I struggle with is I wonder why it's only certain people. Why is it only certain people that get that intervention? And I don't I don't mean to imply that those people are deserving and the other people aren't. I just don't know. Is it due to being in a certain state that you're receptive to it at that very moment? And so these other beings, whether it's divine or guardian angels or whatever you want to call it, if they can only step in if you're in that right state. Maybe they try to all the time, but just those perfect conditions have to be met, and then they can boom, just like literally step in and take care of things. Because I would like to think that it's something like that, because the idea that some people are saved and some people aren't, to me, is just, it's really a heartbreaker. It's like, wow, really? Why not those other hundreds of people? So maybe it's just the perfect conditions, perfect story had happened. But our friend, the Weird Desk, said that he had something very similar to that happen. And so that's one of our YouTube listeners and viewers. He's the Weird Desk US. So, yeah, if you want to call in, I'd love to hear from you. 720-923-0500. And for those of you on YouTube, if you're looking for the number, just look up here, up there. Right there's the number. It's very small on the screen. I keep forgetting to blow it up, and Julia probably is going to have to throw something heavy at me to get me to remember to do that. But I'll try. I'm still trying. The next one, I was digging a grave for a passed-on pet in the woods behind my house. I leaned on my shovel to stop for a break, and I saw some kind of animal dart in front of me, and I leaned forward to look at it closely, and it vanished. Next thing I knew, I woke up lying on the ground and for some reason didn't worry about it. I just got up and began digging again. It was a hot summer in the mountains, so when I got weak and exhausted a little while later, I figured I was getting heat exhaustion, so I went back to my mom's house to cool off, and she freaked out because I was covered in blood. I had a big skip mark cut on the very top of my scalp, like something very sharp had skipped across my head like a skipping stone. I was in the middle of a property that backs up to a big multi-county lake a mile or two back, and on the other side was a dense forest my family owned. No idea what it was. Well, that's just wrong. What the hell is that story? So the person's digging a grave, they're sitting there, something darts in front of them, boom, disappears, and the next thing they know, they're kind of waking up from being unconscious. So they got nerfed in the head, is what it sounds like. And were bleeding for quite a while. Oh, man. That's one of those stories that shouldn't end like that. There should be more. What the hell happened? What did you do? Did you go back up there? Did you look around? I mean, I got a million questions for a story like that. Huh. Well, that's all I got to give you, though, ladies and gentlemen. No idea. No idea what else happened in that situation. So, the next one, I was driving back from a 16-hour road trip to see family, and I was about an hour from home. The whole trip was just 4 days long, so I was pretty sleep deprived and had been driving myself with very few stops. I was cruising on the highway, not mountain. There's no word of mountain in there, sorry. And in front of me was a tunnel through the mountains. There's the word mountain. That's where I picked it up. I hadn't driven through a tunnel on the way out of the state, so I became alarmed. I'd been driving the wrong way. I checked my GPS, but had no signal on my phone. Unusual. The whole trip, I normally have a signal. I immediately took the exit before the tunnel to get my bearings, and it was a big circle exit. At the end was a four-way stop with a flashing traffic light. I took a left, and the only thing around was a small 50s-style diner and a parking lot. All the lights were off in the diner and obviously closed, but the parking lot was full of cars, like packed. There were old classic cars and new cars, but there was not a single soul to be seen. It was around 3 a.m., so I didn't expect a crowd, but there wasn't a hotel or homes anywhere nearby. Just a closed diner full of a lot of cars. I didn't even slow down. I noped out of there so hard. I pulled a U-E in the street and drove back onto the ramp to the highway. Once I was back on the highway, I drove for about 30 minutes until the GPS came back. That was actually pretty close to home. My friend and I once drove back to try to find the diner, but we never could find it. Or the tunnel. I like to think that if I would have pulled into the parking lot, my car would have been added to the collection, and no one would have seen me again. Ooh, that's some David Paulides stuff right there, ladies and gentlemen, huh? It's the Venus Fly Diner. You just get zapped in there, and it's like they come in, but they don't come out. Yeah, that's creepy. Very, very creepy. Let's see how we're doing for time. I've been gum running for a while. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get back to this. In my hometown area, there's a ghost story about a large gray bull that roams the local farms and bellows when seen, only to vanish into thin air. When I was a boy in the Scouts, I heard that story at a meeting, and it made my blood run cold and gave me a distinct taste of salt in my mouth. One of my earlier memories was being in the bottom of our fields at home, walking back uphill towards our house, and I looked up, and in front of me was a gigantic grayish-blue bull standing between me and the house. I'd never seen it before, and we didn't have cows, so when it bellowed, I turned tail and ran through the field. And when I looked back behind me in a wild, open view with nowhere to go, it was gone. My grandmother didn't believe me, of course, but years later, she was our den mother, and when that story was being told, I looked up at her across the room, and she was already looking at me, and white as a ghost. Aha! Told you so, Grandma. Oh, dear. All right. Let's see. We got a call here. This is... Hello, Diane. You're on the air.
Hey.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up?
What's up? What's up?
I heard you when you said call.
Oh, very good. All right.
Hello?
What's on your mind tonight?
Well, first of all, hi everybody, love you, and new people, thanks for coming in. Good to meet you. And a couple of different things. I'm gonna try and not overbake the noodles tonight.
Yeah, we got 3 minutes. We got 3 minutes until break. So.
Okay, one thing I was going to say, well, because we do have some people here, oh, geez, I don't know if I can say that in 3 minutes. We do have some people in here who, I guess, had near-death type things happen to them.
Oh, wow.
And so I want to say that please do get your stories in about that. And there are groups, and one group that I'm in on Facebook that deals with that if you need somewhere to talk about that. And also, just, I don't know. It's too big for 3 minutes. Maybe I'll call back later or something.
Well, sure. Otherwise, you can come back in on the other side of the break if you want to hold.
Okay.
So, but you can keep talking until then. We got 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, okay. Basically, I was just going to say, as far as near-death experiences, and you were talking about why some things work out and why some things don't work. You know, where are the guardian angels?
Sure.
It's kind of strange because there was a time, there were so many near-death experiences, times when I could have been dead, that I didn't die when I first started on this path. And I mean, everything from, like I have related before, getting bit by a brown recluse, and not getting medical intervention for that. And I did not even go into a coma. I was sick like nobody's business for 4 days. But there was also a really weird accident that didn't happen to me. It was strange. It was almost like there was a foreshadowing that I was going to be in an accident. Because there was an accident that tried to happen to me but missed me narrowly. Instead, this car came flying out of I was in a lineup at a red light, and this car came flying out of a side street very fast, hit the car behind me, hit the car that was by the gas station. This was right by a gas station, so it could have been a very bad thing. Bounced, hit the car in front of me, and a car that was in another lane, and I was the only one in that area that did not get hit by something.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, holy,
Yeah.
it wasn't my day to get hit, but everybody else did. And I'm just like, what is going on today? So, I heard this screech, and I'm like, oh no, I know that sound. That's not a good sound,
Right.
I know the screech of what it sounds like during an accident, but it was, and I just kind of braced, but no, it didn't hit me. But then later on the appointed day, the day that I dreamed about, did end up
Hold on,
dying.
Diane. We're gonna have to go to break. So you're gonna have to hold that thought, and we'll come back to you on the other side.
Okay.
Don't go away, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back with more of the Paranormal Portal.
Everybody likes to play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. But I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken I am finished with my silence. I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness. Just you dance upon my joy. Feeding me with empty promise. You're just another fucking mess. Taking off the slice of my sanity. Just make sure that you're well fed.
Caroline is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second hour of the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm having a good time. Are you? Hope you are. We are back for hour number 2 here, and right now we are being joined by Miss Diane Swiger by telephone. So, Diane, are you still there?
Hi, yeah, I am.
Okay.
I guess we left him on a little bit of a cliffhanger there.
Yeah, there was. Absolutely. So bring us home. What is the rest of the story?
What I think maybe part of this is maybe part of the answer to your question is why intervention sometimes, why not other times. Well, I think a thing about a walk-in is it's a contract. And in a real walk-in, and the term was coined by Ruth Montgomery back, I think, in the 80s or 90s. It was the 80s, I think. And it refers to a spirit that walks in by contract when another spirit walks out. And when a person is through with the body and the body, and there is a great enough need, apparently another spirit can come into the body and use it. It's something I'm hoping to make a video about at some point. But I think I am a different version of me than I was before that. I think I had to die the time that I did die. And I think because I had the dream about it, and as far as I understand, there are exit times. There are exit points when you can exit life. And if it's not one of those times, you're not going to die.
Okay.
And if it is one of those times, you can choose to die. But we almost always had some choice about our. As a matter of fact, some people we say we have ultimate choice about when to die, when we die. So
Okay.
I don't know if that entirely answers that.
Well, it's more information in a cloudy room, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah, and of course there are a lot of theories. The thing I wanted to bring up tonight that's different from that, the one subject, is that I've been thinking about this for a while, but every time I would bring it up, people would really. I mean, it is one of the crazier theories. We're not just caught in, people see the war of good versus evil, or basically we seem to be caught up in some kind of a conflict on this world, but. I've suspected this for a long time, and now Molten Howe, I think, is the one who brought it up, Linda. We're also caught in a temporal war, say her insiders.
We're caught up in a
and
what?
that means
In
more time.
a temporal war? Okay.
Temporal, as in
Okay,
time,
I didn't
which
understand that word.
is
So,
why you're right. Which is why time, which is the real, possibly one of the real causes of the Mandela effect. Although the Mandela effect, I think, is a bigger subject than that, and I'll go into that someday too. But I think there's several things that cause what we call the Mandela effect. But one of them probably is. I noticed, though, way before CERN, and people are blaming it on CERN. I noticed the effect way before CERN. I've known other people who noticed effects like that way before CERN.
okay.
And the only way that it could even be CERN is if somehow CERN is traveling back through the effects of CERN are traveling back through time in order to make it happen before CERN ever happened. But if that is the case, then we have got to get our heads around time, and we are not taught how to deal with time, really, as it really is, which it's not just a forward-going arrow. Time is actually, without getting too complex, time is not what most people think it is.
Sure.
Or how does it exist, the
Okay.
way that most people think of it. And actually everything that happens has many multiple outcomes. And every decision you make is a different result. And all these results exist. And where you are is the result of the decision you made in this one.
Or
So,
sure.
right. So anyway, if you think of time as being, it's really hard because you're thinking, well, that can't possibly be. Well, maybe no. Wait, if there is time involved, then yes, a lot of things can be that don't seem very logical, and it would also, there would be a lot of things explained that aren't explained now. But of course, you cannot prove any of this. I mean, it's very hard to get used to. And I can tell you that you don't have to worry about like some of the modern shows that talk about the time paradox, and they talk about if you meet yourself, you could spontaneously,
Sure.
go out of existence or
Right.
something, and that is bogus.
Well, in your opinion.
That is not.
In your opinion.
happen.
Yeah.
Well, it really can't. If you think about it, you are never exactly the same from moment to moment.
Sure. But
You never are.
I understand what you're
molecules have
saying.
shifted. You're different. Your
Right.
vibration shifts varies a little bit. Actually having a carbon copy of yourself show up would be very, very unusual at any particular time. Would be very difficult. Plus, the you that would show up in that reality would not be the same you because you weren't there in the first one. It would
Or
be
were
a
you?
different version of reality.
No, I understand what you're
So-
saying. I don't disagree with you, but I mean, I don't think we can ever speak to it in absolutes because there just aren't any absolutes. We just don't know. And so whenever somebody
It's hard
comes
to
at it,
prove any of it, isn't it?
well, that's my point. So whenever anybody addresses it real authoritatively, it's like, well, wait a minute. I hope you're right. I think you're right. I don't disagree with your logic. But
I
what
mean,
I'm saying,
logically, if you think about it logically,
Right.
is what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you think
I would agree with that.
logically, you can't be the same person because you weren't there in the first place. If you were there in the first place,
Yeah.
but you aren't. You weren't
Sure.
there. You're going back in time. I actually I did some exercises a long time ago to ask my future self how I got through something because I was so freaked out by what was going on in my life. And at that time, I ran across something that said you can go to your future self and ask for advice on how to get through this. Ask a future self that made it through.
Ah, good
And I mean, they're, it's like, okay, I thought, heck, I'm so, I told you this was a weird subject, okay? Is this weird enough for Friday?
It certainly is. I don't know how in depth we'll be able to go on this, but I do like
No.
that you brought it to the table.
Not.
Yeah.
Very.
But it would require a show all of its own to even start to
Yeah,
address.
Yeah.
So.
I pause every now and then to try and give you some space to answer, but because I can't really hear the way I'm doing this on the phone. It's
I
kind of
wonder
weird. I can
because
always hear you.
that comes up a lot. I'm always like, Diane, and you're just rolling. It's like, okay.
I can't hear you
I
on
know.
the phone all the time. It's like,
Okay. Well, I understand.
Is he talking?
I understand that now, but a lot of times I was like, well, why isn't she listening at all? But if your phone doesn't work that way, then that explains a lot, I guess. But at any regard, I do always appreciate you calling in. We love you. It's just, I honestly, I just think you're probably one of the more intelligent people I know. But, you converse at the speed of your thinking, and it's like, wow. So...
I don't. Actually, I lag a little if I conversed at the speed of my thinking.
Well, there you have it. But
You would never make out the words because I think a lot faster, and actually sometimes I leave out middle parts.
Sure.
And then I realize I have to backspace and go, I suppose I should mention this part.
But thank you so much for calling in. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. It really is. I just think we just got to figure out how to talk to you sometimes because you're on 15 pages at once, and it's more than us 3D people can do.
Well, 3D. I am on Skype now. I did get Skype at Sean's urging.
Okay.
So I have Skype now.
Okay.
I really hate that Hangouts is going away because you could find me at Hangouts. You can find me on. I have Messenger. So I can be found on Messenger now, and so I'm going to try and, like I said, I'll try and be more accessible. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like that.
No, it's fine.
I don't really mean to be this inaccessible person. I love you all. I want to talk to you all. I love you, and it's just that, and my energy is better now. I have been getting well. And I'll talk about how I'm doing that, too, at some point, but not tonight.
All right, my lady.
Okay, well, I think that's enough baking for tonight. I think I'll go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for calling in. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll see you.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the call-in board is still open. If you've got something you'd like to share, some thoughts or ideas. I should have scrolled up. Somebody said something in the chat that was really, really amazing, and I'm trying to scroll up to see what it was. No. I went too far. Sorry about that. I'm looking for when I said something. Here we go. Nope, I went too far again. I don't know. It's in there somewhere. Somebody in the chat said something incredible that happened, and now I'm trying to figure out where that is. Ay. Do you follow Paranormal Portal on Facebook? And if you don't follow Paranormal Portal on Facebook, please do. I'm doing my bestest to grow the Facebook community. It's going much better than growing that Twitter thing. I'm not really good with Twitter. I'm trying to be, but I'm really just not yet. However, if you are looking for us on Facebook, and it's really a good idea if you're following the show to follow us on Facebook, because any announcements for the show I'm going to make there. So if you want to know if there's any problems with the show or if anything's going on or if we're late for some reason, I will post it there. That's about the only thing I can do. But find us on Facebook. It's Paranormal Portal Radio. So facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. There it is. Okay, so it was Renee. Renee said, my daughter's grandpa died about 3 years ago. The other day, she got a call from Grandpa. It freaked her out so bad that she would not answer it or call it back. Wow. That's amazing. That is really an amazing thing. And now the ghostly phone call thing for me, I think is absolutely amazing. I don't understand. But again, I don't think that spirits probably have a lot of difficulty in screwing with electronic devices. They just seem to not have any problem doing that. Electronic devices just seem to be, well, if they're beings of energy, manipulating other energy probably isn't that big of a stretch for them. And so, hence the lights turning on and off, or the radio turning on and off, or, weird things happening like that electronically in hauntings. That's like, it's pretty much haunting 101. Something's going to turn on and off a bunch of times, or just once in a while, or just, in order to be a nuisance. So the ghost phone calls to me, I think, are an absolutely amazing phenomena. And I don't know. I suppose it just could be a mimic kind of thing, like something's mimicking a person that used to be alive, and it could be a dark thing, and I guess that's a possibility too. And so who wants to bring that memory with you? I think it was last night on the show, or the night before, I covered a story of these people that had gotten an old phone as a plaything from their grandmother who had died. She had died of cancer. And they were playing with it, and it was years after the death of the grandmother. But as they were sleeping, the two sisters were sleeping. The youngest one was the one writing the story years later. And she said the little blue phone that they had gotten, that used to be their grandmother's, started ringing and making weird noises. And then the oldest sister, which was in the bottom bunk, got up and answered it and said, "Oh, hi, Grandma." And then it said, "Oh, no, you're not my grandma." And apparently she dropped the phone and started screaming. And well, even the parents came into the room and heard this, this horrible things being said in the voice of the grandmother. So just something really dark and horrible. So now that phone wasn't plugged in at all. It wasn't. It was just there in the story. And what a horrible, horrible thing. So I understand the trepidation in that regard, but just imagine if your deceased loved ones could call, and maybe have tried calling, and just want to say they love you one last time or something. Just amazing. What a cathartic experience that would be. So I don't know. Those to me are incredibly profound, and thank you for sharing that, Renee. I really appreciate that. That is really one of those phenomena that I find incredibly interesting, and I'd love to understand more about that, but I just don't think it's mine to understand. But whenever those stories come up, I'm just like, oh, really? Wow. And I just can't wait to read them, because those are just so profound. I mean, it could be a point of contact between this world and whatever's next. So really cool. And there's been, people have had conversations with the loved ones that have passed on. Now, oftentimes they sound like they're confused, like, "Hey, this is so-and-so, and, is so-and-so home? Because something weird's going on. I don't really know what's going on." And so that one came up just the other night. I don't know, maybe last week, that we covered that one. And it was a kid's friend in high school. This high schooler died, and he was friends with the whole family and several of the brothers, but he was best friends with the older brother. And the kid had died in a car accident or something, and it was like a week later, and the phone rang, and the one kid answered it, and he's like, hey, so-and-so, this is Bill. Is Jim home? Something really weird's going on. I don't know what's going on. And said it sounded just like him, sounded exactly like him, all the same types of ways that he would communicate. And he said then all of a sudden the phone was dead. Like it just got disconnected. But, and those are kind of the hard ones. Like they're in that in-between place, and they don't really know what the hell's going on. But somehow they're still able to manipulate a phone. So very cool phenomena. I don't know what to think of it, but I think something really profound could be going on in those situations. So let's see. I got about 6 minutes before the break. I'm taking Brandon Goes Bigfoot. Oh, that's right. I was, in fact, I just got off the phone with Dan, and Dan's going to be joining me up there, Duke, but I have to talk to you because there's a lot of logistical things we got to figure out. So do remind, maybe, I don't think I'll have a chance to talk to you today or tonight, but maybe I'll give you a holler tomorrow sometime. There's a lot of things that I need to discuss, just how we're going to do it, because there's a whole lot of logistics that are going to be necessary to handle. So I'll be talking to you tomorrow, Duke. But yeah, we're going to be doing an outing next month in Montana, just to put it out there, and it's going over to Duke's neck of the woods, and perhaps looking for some Bigfooting and also checking a ghost town. And I've got Dan Pruitt going to be joining me, and we're going to be investigating a ghost town over in Montana next month, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm trying to figure out if we can perhaps air it, put it on the air during show times. It's possible we can, but I'm not positive. I've got some logistical things to work out in that regard too. But at the very least, Dan and I will be collecting evidence, and we will have video segments and do shows with Dan discussing what we found, and have Duke on as well to discuss the Bigfoot end of it. So there's going to be a lot coming up in the next month. So really excited about that. That's a new development, and I just heard back from Dan today that he is ready to go. He's good to go. So it's exciting time for the portal, ladies and gentlemen. This is some of the stuff I've been talking about wanting to expand and do. So we're going to try to do part of the show from the field, but I'm trying to coordinate with Don and with Dan and with Duke and with me, and we're going to put this on the air if we can and do some live segments there on location at the ghost town. So we'll see how we can do it, but it'll be like the middle of next month. So stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. That's a really exciting development, and special thanks to Duke for making that all possible. This is in his neck of the woods. So we will get it done for sure. But whether or not we can broadcast live, I don't know. We're certainly going to try, but if we can't, well, at the very least, we will have video. We will have video segments to show on future shows, and hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. I know it's going to be a lot of fun, but hopefully we'll have a lot of fun things to share with you guys. Dan's going to bring his whole magic bucket full of tools and toys, and hopefully we find some great evidence. So really looking forward to that. That's a huge development for the portal. Yeah, it should be, Weird Desk. It should be amazing. This will be our first such outing. I'm full of nerves about it though too, because whenever I do the shows, I've been doing the live shows for years, but this will be the first live show that could be done on location, and so I'm just full of nerves because I always want the shows to be great as I can make them, and this is one of those things that, God, I don't want it to go sideways. I don't want the portal stuff to happen while we're there. I hope it goes perfectly. So send lots of positive vibes, ladies and gentlemen. So, no, that's Cha-Cha. Cha-Cha is the surprise guest for the Montana trip. If you want to come, Cha-Cha, it's up to you. But we will need human bait, I suppose, so we could have you strap you with a bunch of sensors and send you into some of the abandoned buildings. And, because Don's not going to be there, so we'll need someone to do that. We'll need someone to be our Don. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get more with you. We'll get together with you more about that. Keep watching for updates. That's in the near future. Hopefully we have some logistics planned out within the next week or two. But we'll be letting you know so that you guys can tune in and be a part of it as well. So that's an exciting one. She'll be the bait. All right. That's a deal. That's a bet. All right. So let's continue on our journey here. We've got 2 minutes until the break. Let's see if I can squeeze out another one of these short ones. It says, every year on my birthday for the first 20 years of my life, I woke up at the exact time I was born, at 5:56 Eastern Standard Time. When I was stationed in the UK, I woke up at 10:56 a.m. and thought, I broke the streak, until I realized I was 5 hours ahead. Ooh, that is really cool. So every year this person woke up on the exact time of their birth, on the day of their birth. Wow. That's pretty powerful stuff, ladies and gentlemen. That's a pretty powerful event. So I don't have time to read the next one before the break. But again, today's podcast that was released is Linda Godfrey, her part 2 of her visit with us, talking about all things Bigfoot and Dogman. We cover more of the Dogman on the part 2 than we did on the first part. And so it's a great episode. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Look for Paranormal Portal on wherever you find your podcasts. And special thanks to Revolver Podcasts for making that possible. It was a great conversation with her. She's just a wonderful person. And she does have a new book out, ladies and gentlemen. And that is I Know What I Saw. And it's available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. So you can certainly get a copy of it. I would highly recommend any and all of her books because she's just such a fantastic person and such a thoughtful researcher. And she's got a great writing style as well. I mean, it's just real fun reading. So that's Linda Godfrey. And that is today's podcast that was released is part 2 of our discussion with her. And at the time we recorded it, she had not yet released the I Know What I Saw, but that is now out there as well. But she has a whole bunch of books dealing with cryptids and strangeness in the Midwest and abroad. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to our last break. Wow, it's our last break of the night. So don't go away. We'll be right back, but the phone lines are open. If anyone wants to talk to me in the last half hour, I'll be waiting here for you. So we'll be right back, guys. right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show and our last half hour of the Paranormal Portal tonight. If you're new to the show on these Friday and Saturday nights, what you may or may not know if you're watching on YouTube is that we are also joined up with our mother network, which is TFR Live, which broadcasts not only on TFR Live, but also on iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. And there are commercial segments that happen every half hour. So on the YouTube, I put together the video elements to play during the commercial breaks because it's just part of the format. I don't have a choice. We have to take commercials. So rather than have you guys listen to dead air or just a song, I put together the video segments just for something for you guys to do rather than just stare at a screen with either a picture on it or even listening to rebroadcasted commercials. So that's the reason for the breaks during the YouTube videos on Friday, Saturday night. Just so you know, in case you aren't aware of that. But anyway, we are on the last half hour of the show tonight, and we are going, God, it's been going fast. It always does, but, I never get used to that fact that it just really goes fast. So let's get some more stories. I just read the first line of the next story, and it's like, well, I'm going to have to change a bunch of those words. Some of these are I swear, are written by, like, angry bikers or something. It's like there's a lot of profanity, so it creates a real challenge in narration for me to have to change them on the fly. But I'll do my best because I know we got little ears listening, and that's always an important part of the show is to keep it family friendly. So that's what I do. But oh yeah, I think it's bone meal, brown dwarf. That I feed them bone meal in my plants. He said blood meal. I've never heard of that for plants. Huh. Maybe that's true too. I didn't know that. But that's just me looking at chat and trying to get involved in conversations I have no idea what's going on with. So, all right, the next story rather, the first sentence says, growing up, my brother really beat the hell out of me constantly. Like cut eyes, bloody noses, police called beatings. One day at the library, I was reading a book about some tribe who believed you could go into people's dreams and cast a sickness on them. So I did all the pre-dream groundwork described in the book, and that night I went to sleep and had a dream. In the dream, I was at one end of a long road and my brother was at the other end, and I lifted my hand and pointed at him and said, I cast a sickness on you. The next day we're watching TV and he said, I'm going to have to rephrase that. I don't feel well. You have mono. I don't even know why I thought that, but it was the first thing that came to mind. Screw you was all he said, and the conversation was over. A week later, it turns out he did have mono. I was freaked out. I was pretty sure I was a witch and would burn in hell. To compound matters, I had a friend whose dad was a professor, and we'd get stoned with him, and he'd always tell me random facts. And I'm at his house, and he starts telling me about this tribe that went in people's dreams and cast sickness. I was paranoid as hell that people would learn this horrible thing I did. Now that I'm not 15 and and an idiot, I assume it was just the creepiest coincidence ever. Well, I don't think it. There's energy follows intention. And if you think about it, anything that's wrong with us is a manifestation of energy or a disruption of energy in most cases. For most illness and disease, on its most fundamental form, it's a disruption to our natural energy patterns, and that's what illness is. Now, I do believe that some illnesses are really good. Like I really firmly believe, as much as colds really, really beat the hell out of me, I really believe that they are good for us to experience, because I believe we purge and cleanse a lot during those kind of illnesses, and they are just a good way to push and clean out our systems. I don't know if that's true or not. This is just from an intuitive place that I feel like, yeah, colds are really good and they're really important. And then plus they probably help our immune system, to be honest with you, because if we were always feeling well, I imagine our immune system would just be kind of, hibernating or something. So I guess it's good to be active. But, some illnesses serve a purpose. But, diseases and stuff, maybe they are just primarily energy disruption, and perhaps esoteric measures can cure illnesses. I firmly believe that they can, but I'm just trying to be the host here and keep an open mind to different viewpoints, because I don't pretend that everybody has to believe what I believe. But I think that there's something to it. I've seen some really amazing things in my life, and if that's any measure of what's possible, then I really believe anything's possible. So take it or leave it, but that's my 2 cents. Says, I have a friend who once told me about a time when he was in his teens. He slept in a bunk bed with his brother in the lower bunk. He said he dreamt a demon wearing the skin of a man threatening to kill his brother in order to save him. He somehow managed to procure a knife and put the knife to the neck of the demon. The demon tells him the only way to rid evil is through evil, which is fundamentally not true, but anyway. He hesitated and woke up to find he was pressing a butcher knife under the neck of his younger brother. Jesus. He was still sleeping, fortunately, but when he awoke, he told the same dream exactly, except he was attacked by his brother in the dream and said the exact same thing. The only way to rid evil is through evil. Nothing similar happened after that, and it gave him some serious issues that led him to go through psychotherapy for a while. I can't say if it's true or not. As far as I know, he made the whole thing up, but I don't think so, as he was reluctant to even mention it. There are dark things out there. That certainly would be a pretty dark manipulation, to take control of somebody in the dreams and have them do horrid acts. Ugh, that's horrible, horrible, horrible. Next one, not nearly as terrifying, but I shared a dream with my wife once. I dreamt that I was in the basement with a friend from work. He and I were talking, and he led me through the door into a room where there was a table. And on this table were 3 of my childhood cats. One was mostly white with spots of black and long hair. Another was mostly black with spots of white with short hair. And the third was a long-haired tabby. And I walked up to them and pet the long-haired tabby, and the mostly white with black spots was named Annabelle. The mostly black with white spots was named Sylvester, and the long-haired tabby was named Garth. Later, my wife woke up and said she dreamt of me, and she dreamt that I was in a room with a table that had 3 cats on the table. One cat was mostly white with spots of black and had long hair. Second was mostly black with spots of white with short hair. And the third was a long-haired tabby. She said in the dream, I walked up to the tabby cat and started petting it. I didn't speak a word of this dream to her. As a matter of fact, she woke up and immediately told me before I even said a word to her. Freaked me the hell out, and I still can't explain it to this day. Wow. That's pretty impressive. We got another call here, so let's get to this. All right, this is area code 936. You're on the air.
Hey, Brent. This is Brent. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you, Brent. This is Brent, hearing you loud and clear. Go ahead, Brent.
Good deal. Yeah, I figured I'd call in and share another experience with you guys and get your take on it, just the same as last time. This is probably going to be the most, I don't know if it's a paranormal experience or what it is exactly, but I'd be interested to hear if anybody's experienced anything similar to this.
All right.
I'd say this was probably in 2007. No, it would have actually been about 2009. I was up at about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, I don't want to imply it was the 3 o'clock witching hour because I'm not sure if it was or not, but I'm sitting down, and I was living with my mother at the time, and she lives in an old historic house in the oldest town in Texas. And, you know, this house always had creepy goings on as far as like footsteps, you know, but nothing that would make you feel in danger at all. Well, this one particular night, I'm sitting down playing video games, and it's super late. My wife is in bed, and I'm just kind of focused on the TV, parked right in front of it, just doing my thing. And like if you were to take your right hand and kind of cup it and put it over your right ear, the way that sound kind of leaves the room, it almost gives it like a hollow sound. Well, my right ear does that. It's just like it was cupped. And then right when it's cupped, it's just the loudest ringing of my right ear I've ever heard. I'm sure you've had ringing of the ears. If you were to hook that up to an amplifier and just multiply that by 50, just the loudest ringing I'd ever heard in my life. And as soon as that happens, every hair on my body just stands up, and I pause the game I'm playing, and I'm sitting there, kind of psyching myself out in my head, because I'm a little bit freaked out. So I'm sitting there telling myself, like, bro, you're freaking out for nothing. You're tripping. Just, quit acting, like, what's wrong with you? And I'm actually coaching myself in my head. And so, this ringing goes on for probably 30 seconds, and finally it goes away, and I unpause the game and I get back to playing. I'd say it's probably 1 minute later at the most. Do the same thing, cup your hand and put it over your left ear. And then, my left ear just goes completely blank of any type of noise. And then that same ringing hits my left ear, just a screaming ring. And I can't even explain how loud it was. And of course, right when that happens, every hair on my body is standing just straight up like a cat. And, I've had instances before where, your hair stands up and you're a little bit freaked out, but I can't even, I wish I could relay how it was as far as how my hair was on end. And, I repeat the same process. Bro, you're freaking out for nothing. I'm actually talking to myself in my head, like, why are you tripping out? Why are you freaking out over this? And same thing, 30 seconds, it goes on and stops. And I'm sitting there, and I wait a second, and I'm just kind of pondering what's happened. And of course, I unpause the game and go back to it. But, at this point in time, it's kind of running through my mind, like, why are you tripping out, but why is this happening at the same time?
Right.
And I'd say it's maybe 2 minutes later at the most. Just the exact same thing happens, like for both of my ears. The sound leaves the room and just a screaming ring. And at that point in time, like, I've been trying to psych myself out. Like, why are you freaking out? Why are you feeling like this? But when this happened this last time, when both ears muted out and started ringing, I just got this panicked feeling of like, run now. It's hard to even describe, but I couldn't even trick myself into staying there anymore. So I pause the game, I stand up, and I turn my back to, the TV, and I'm trying, like I'm telling you, it's taking everything in my body not to take off in a dead sprint through the house into the bedroom. So I'm trying to walk as calmly as possible into the bedroom. I'm just going to go lay down. And every hair on my body is standing up like a cat on end. And I go into the bedroom, I stand there for a minute. And so I decide just to lay down in bed. And, my hair was so on end that my wife was sleeping. It's the middle of the night, and I lay down, and she kind of rolls over and puts her hand on my arm. And as soon as she touched me, I guess, it must have been a weird feeling to feel just prickly hairs all over you. 2 minutes later, my hair is still standing straight up, and she wakes up, asks what's wrong, and I'm I kind of brush over it, and I know this is probably the most anticlimactic story. It's I didn't see any spirits or anything, but I guess more my question would be is, has anybody ever heard of anything with ringing of the ears, prior to any type of experience happening? Because I just can't even emphasize I've been in a lot of fights, I've been intimidated by bullies at times, where there's that person that wants to fight you that you don't really want to fight, and you're kind of intimidated by it. But this was actually in my head, I'm telling myself, like, run now, run, get up and run. And I don't know, I've never experienced anything like that. I've had a lot of different experiences, and I'll call in other times and kind of brush over different things that have happened. But that's, as anticlimactic as that is the most absolutely terrified I've ever been in my life. I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, do you have any history of high blood pressure? Is that an issue for you at all?
At that time, no. But, I recently started working a high-stress job. And, 10 years later, I've had my blood pressure go up from work, a few times. But at that time, actually, no, it was very, very low. I was exercising daily, eating well. I was very in shape, trying to do the whole mixed martial arts, whatever. Just that was popular at the time. So I'm trying to be, I guess, I guess prepared for things that probably aren't ever going to happen.
Well, you hope
so no, I was in great shape.
Okay, because
no
I
high
have
blood pressure.
I have experiences with that very same phenomena. Not so persistent though. Usually it's just one ear will get muffled and I'll get a ringing in that ear, and then it will slowly fade away, and that's the extent of it. Kind of the same thing you're talking about. Or then it's, another time in another ear. But I can't say that I've had it appear in one ear and then appear in the other ear in succession. So it's a little bit different, but I do recognize what you're saying. And I've never really known what to think of it either. And is it a spiritual thing? I guess personally I think so, because in that situation, that's what came to mind. Just intuitively, it's like, well, who's doing this? What are they doing? So what does it mean? I don't know. It could be an intimidation thing, or it could just be a very powerful presence is near. It's hard to say. But yeah, I am familiar with it.
I'm sorry.
I'm familiar with it personally.
Let me ask you, whenever you've had those, because, I've never had that happen in succession like that again. And I've had, my ears muffle out and ring every now and again. But I guess my question to you would be, when that's happened to you, have you ever just had your intuition, screaming at you that something was wrong? Were you intimidated at any point in time whenever that's happened to you, or has it just been, typical ringing of the ears? Because I've had that as well. But just this one time, my intuition was just screaming at me to move, and I'm just wondering if that's happened to you or potentially anybody else related to the ringing of the ears specifically.
Well, the one time when it first happened, and it was, for me, it was more recently in the last couple of years. The first time that it happened was on the super blood moon in 2018, when we had that super blood moon, and we were trying to do a show, and everything went wrong. Nothing was working right with the show. Don was breaking stuff because he was just beside himself with this weird energy. And all of a sudden, my ear got that real muffled thing. Now, I didn't feel afraid, except for the fact that I felt like I was being, I don't know how to explain it, but it was like there was such a supercharged energy that it was like I was almost fighting for consciousness. I literally was fighting to stay conscious. So it preceded, what preceded that was that muffle in my ear. And that's, at the time, I didn't know what the hell was going on, and I didn't feel well for that whole night after that. So much so that I actually walked over, which, in the block right next to my house is the emergency room, and went over there and got checked out, and they said, you're fine. But I was thinking, God, am I having high blood pressure, like super high blood pressure, and something going on, and that wasn't the case. But it felt like I was blacking out when it happened to me. So it wasn't fear, but it was like a struggle. It was a sincere struggle to stay conscious.
Oh, that's very interesting. Looking back on it in hindsight, it's just been probably the better part of a decade since that's happened to me. And, in that area of the house, my father's ashes were immediately to the left of me, in the urn, of course. And, it's always like it makes me wonder, like in all actuality, it probably was nothing related to this, but I almost regret not staying there. Like, was that an attempt at the other side, trying to reach across and grab my attention in this instance, or your attention in the instance with the blood moon for you? I look back and I'm like, geez, if I just would have had the nerve to stay there and wait it out and see what happens. But man, just thinking about it, I couldn't. I really wish I could have, but I just did not have the bravery in my body at all to hang there anymore. I mean, I was gone. If it wouldn't have looked absolutely bat crap insane for me to take off sprinting across the house screaming, I mean, I would have, that's how I felt. So,
but you got to trust.
It's always made me wonder.
You've really got to trust your intuition on those things, though. And if your intuition was saying get away from this, then you did the right thing. I mean, I really think that's like our higher self kicking in, going, oh, move, get away. I think that you really got to pay attention to those gut feelings, because they're going to tell you the truth of the situation. Our logical mind's going to play all kinds of games with it, but there's like a root, spiritual core that's going to say, nope, get the hell away, get out of there. No. So I think you did the right thing in doing what you did.
Well, I appreciate your time as always, Brent. I'll call and harass you guys another time and
anytime,
talk
brother,
about some of my experiences. But yeah, if anybody's had any experience with the ringing of the ears that's in the chat room, I'd also be interested in hearing y'all's experiences with that as well, because it's just the two of us talking right now, and it seems that each, both you and I have both experienced something similar, being that that being almost a pretext to something happening. And I'll be curious to know, maybe, as always, it's just this another piece of the puzzle that we could add in and potentially realize there's something trying to reach out whenever this happens. But Brent, I appreciate you as always, brother. Everybody in the chat, thank you. It's been nice talking with y'all. I hope I didn't take up too much time. You all have a wonderful night.
No, thanks for calling in, brother. I appreciate hearing from you. Have a great night.
Yes, sir. You too, bud.
Very cool. What a great way to end the night. And ladies and gentlemen, following the Paranormal Portal, if you're listening on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, TalkStream Live, stick around, because Paisley Wild's going to be coming up with The Spaces Between and her journey into the Druidic practices. She's does a marvelous job. Great person. Personal friend as well. So definitely tune in and check it out and support what she's doing. That would be very cool of you. And she also streams live on YouTube. I believe she'll be doing that tonight, but stay tuned. You can check it out. It's The Spaces Between on YouTube. I think is her thing. So, but that'll be coming up following the Paranormal Portal on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. If you're watching us on YouTube, then, well, the show's almost over. So let me see if I can find something quick to give you before I have to turn the lights out. That one's okay. It says driving down south down a back road parallel to a bunch of farm fields that end in about 3 or 4 miles at a heavy pine tree line, and the road curves hard to the left east. It was about 8 p.m. when I was on my way home from work, so the sun was setting to my right, which is the west, and I probably listening to music, just zoning out, waiting to get home, when just past the tree line, I saw this smallish orange ball of light rise up from behind the trees pretty slowly and came to a hover about 1 or 2 finger thicknesses above the treetops from where I was. Instantly, I'm thinking, this isn't the sun, because when I looked to my right, the sun was setting. And now my eyes are glued to this thing, and the whole time I'm hoping my car isn't going to mysteriously shut down. But while I'm thinking that, this orange ball is getting bigger and turning yellow, while another small ball of orange starts rising up next to the first one, and the second one begins to get bigger and turn yellow as well. I can't believe what I'm seeing, and don't think anyone else will either. All the while trying to make sense of it, these 2 yellow balls of what I assume are light are now hovering above the tree line that I'm heading reluctantly towards. But once the second had matched the first in shape and size and hovering height, They both just seemed to move south and got smaller and smaller until I couldn't see them past the horizon. There's no sound that I could hear from it either, military, VTOL, or otherwise. I still really want to know what it is. I personally think it was something hovering up to takeoff level, being in a forest. That's really the only way. And the color plus the size change was the engines warming up before it/they finally left. But there's the bell, ladies and gentlemen, and the bell means it's time for the portal to end for the night. But we'll be back tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be joined by my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard, and we'll get into more mayhem then. But love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. Good night, everybody.
Woo!